Just good morning and welcome. And so this is the Riverdale Historical Society General Membership Meeting of May 6th, and it is Zoom. So if you just keep yourself muted unless you have a question, and you can raise your hand or use the chat box. And as noted, the session will be recorded, and it's going to be posted on our website probably 5 to 7 days, and also on the YouTube channel. So welcome everyone. And we'll get off to a start here. I just got a couple of updates. Our membership, we currently have 121 active members in the society. And a couple of updates. As I mentioned the last time we met, which was in December, in the general meeting, we had a strategic planning session that had begun. But unfortunately, Kathy Southern, who was our museum consultant, has faced some health challenges, so she's had to withdraw from the program. So we put it on pause for right now, and trying to reconsider and find some additional or others consultants for this process, and just try to take a look back at what we're needing to accomplish. So I will keep you updated as we find a new consultant and a path forward with the process. A couple of informations on the grants that we have upcoming. Howard's going to highlight that later, but some exciting news on grants, which I'm very pleased about. And also mention that our election of officers will take place at the fall meeting. So I know I've gotten so many requests to get on as future members of the executive committee, but kind of being facetious with that. But if anybody is interested, please contact me or any of the other executive members to let us know of your interest. And as I say, we'll have that election in the fall at the general membership meeting. And just some other dates coming up in the future. First off, this May 25th at Oxon Hill Manor will be the Prince George's County Historical Preservation Month reception, beginning at 6 p.m. So if you are in town, that's the Thursday right before Memorial Day weekend. It's always a great celebration, and Oxon Hill Manor is an interesting venue for us. It has some great sight lines down into the Potomac River and has been restored as an event facility. Has a little more aspect of being an event facility than a historic home, but still a great place to be. We also are going to be celebrating Trolley Trail Day. If you remember, back before COVID, we celebrated there in Riverdale Park Town Center, just at the foot of the Calvert Memorial Park. We'll do that again. That's on June 10th from 11 to 4. And we have some volunteers, and also Beth Alvarez has some volunteers from the Paint Branch Garden Club that will be joining us there also. And the big news, if you will, on June 12th of this year is the actual day that the museum opened to the public 30 years ago. It's hard to believe that we've been a public museum for 30 years. A lot more history prior to that, but with the public for 30 years. So on Sunday, June 11th, we're going to have some special open houses, tours, kitchen guild, outdoor activities, what have you. And I know Maya will probably highlight that a little bit later in her report. So that's where we are at the point. And again, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them now or at the end. But if not, let's go right into approval of minutes. And that would be of the December 3rd meeting of 2022. So any questions or comments or edits? If not, I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes of December 3rd.
I move to approve.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
All those in favor, aye. Thank you very much. We'll move in. Anne, thank you very much for your diligence on the meeting minutes. They are always very, very helpful and very well done. Next up is the treasurer's report. And unfortunately, Michelle is not able to be with us today. Michelle wears many volunteer hats, so she is actually with another one of her volunteer organizations today, but she has sent me some information about the treasurer's report. So our total funds available at this present time are $28,305.36. Of that money, we have 8 encumbrances, which total $20,720.08. And then we have our expected expenses for the month of May, which includes our registrar salary, our social media manager salary, grass cutting at the cemetery, also some other mulch for the cemetery, and some expenses for social media. That comes to about $2,740.85. So we are still very much in the black, which I'm happy to report. And just a couple of other things. I think that's about it for just looking at Michelle's notes, and those are about it. So if I would ask for an approval of the treasurer's, a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I
So
make a
moved.
motion to approve.
And a second. So thank you very much. Those are gone. So I'm going to turn to Howard now, who has been shepherding our grant applications, several of them, and as being partaking in that also. It's not a very easy process. They ask a lot of very in-depth questions, and you find out a lot about the organization when you're going through a grant application. So Howard.
Well, thanks, Patrick. And, you know, this is one of the nicest reports I've ever been able to give because we have such good news. MCHC, which is the Maryland Center for History and Culture, formerly the Maryland Historical Society and the Maryland Historical Museum, awarded us a grant in March of $20,000 in order to digitize the Calvert papers, the ones that Matt Ray has loaned us for several years, and that we have cataloged and worked on, but we will now digitize them, not only so that we have the digital records and we're able to use them in a more sort of facile way, but also so that eventually we can make these available to other scholars and students and interested members of the public. I will tell you thank you, Anne. I will tell you it was an interesting process. We actually applied for a little over $15,000. And MCHC came back and said, would you like 20? And we said, yes, that would be very nice. Thank you very much. And so what it allows us to do is digitize these. The work will be overseen by Jen Flood and Ann Turcos, who are more familiar with this process than any of us will ever be. The work will be done by Crowley. They are a professional company. We will send the documents out in small batches for them to be digitized and returned back to us. And when they do, Anne and Jen will have in essence, a catalog. They'll have the metadata of the documents, which makes them far more useful in terms of research. And Anne, I want to thank you and Jen both for taking this on. We know we've thrown a lot of responsibility on you. The digitization process, the cataloging process, all of that runs from last month through October of 2024. We think we can actually accomplish it in much shorter order than that, but we do have that amount of time. And I just want to emphasize the fact that in their press release, MCHC said there were 300 history museums in Maryland, that they only awarded 10 grants this year, and only 2 of those were in Prince George's County. So I think we can all feel justifiably proud that the museum is so well recognized, the society is so well recognized, and our work is so well recognized that they chose to give us the grant. So exciting, really exciting. It really changes, I think, the dynamic of how we can make the history of Riversdale available to a lot more people. And then we immediately turned around and in April submitted a grant to MHAA for improvements to Calvert Memorial Park. We've applied for $51,000, which would fund new plantings. It would fund a fence around the park, similar in style to the one that surrounds Riversdale, because as you know, the park is completely open to Route 410 right now. Not exactly the safest environment, and also one that doesn't draw attention to the importance of the park. Included in that grant proposal is also some signage, some at the entrance explaining the park, some at the cemetery giving some more detail of the history, and then a new sculpture. You remember that about a year ago, maybe 2 now, Paul Marino, a local Eagle Scout candidate, led a project to place the outline of the Riverdale Presbyterian Church, a brick outline into the lawn of the park, which is wonderful, but there's no signage to tell you what it is at this point. And so between signage and a sculpture that would show where the entrance of the church was, we're not only able to tell the story of the Calvert family, but also the story of the Presbyterian Church. And MHAA is the Maryland Heritage Areas Association, I think. And so it is a group of the heritage areas. So for instance, we fall within ATHA, within the Anacostia Trails Heritage Area. And they reviewed, Megan Bacco, who was their director, reviewed our proposal, gave us some very good suggestions before we submitted it into MHAA. That was submitted the first week of April. We will know in July whether we've been awarded the grant. And if we do receive it, we can begin work in July and it can run all the way through the end of 2024. So it's a very competitive grant. It's one that I think would really make a great benefit for the Memorial Park if we are able to do it. There is a requirement that we match 1-to-1 all the funds that we would receive from them, but we can do that both with financial hard dollars and with volunteer effort, in-kind contributions. So in our proposal, we included a match of a lot of the effort that Jennifer Flood and others of us will contribute to that project. So stay tuned. Hopefully the next time we meet, I can give you more good news on grants. But it's a great process. And again, I think we are very proud of being recognized by MCHC. You'll see an article with a little more detail coming up in the newsletter, which will come out later. So thanks, Patrick.
Sure, thank you. And just a couple of clarifications there. MCHC is the Maryland Center for History and Culture out of Baltimore. And then MHAA is the Maryland Heritage Area Authority. I have to look at my cheat notes here for that. But MHAA is the governing authority that's over all of the heritage areas within Maryland. So ATHA, which is the area that we are a part of, is one of the Maryland heritage areas. And I believe there are 12 or 13 within the state of Maryland, but ATHA is the organization that oversees, or rather MHAA is the organization that oversees ATHA and its counterparts. So one of the other points back on the MCHC grant, with that additional funding that they offered us, we were also able then to include in the digitization project the Xerox copies that we have of Rosalie's letters, which went to make up the book Mistress of Riversdale. So that will give us an additional benefit of having those digitized for the posterity that we have them. As again, they're not the originals, they're Xerox of the originals, but it's still that we're able to have those digitized for reference purposes. So any questions with regards to those grant applications? All righty, thank you very much. Maya, you're up next, please.
Well, good morning, everybody. I didn't realize I was up so soon, Patrick. I was just pulling up my presentation, but I will share my screen now. Howard, can you give me permission? It says it's disabled right now. Okay, I think I can actually share now.
Yeah, it should be available.
Start the slideshow. So as Patrick shared with everyone, we are entering into our 30th year, which the museum is very, very, very excited about. And we hope that each of you will be able to come out and participate with us this year. But before I get to the 30th anniversary, I will start, talking about the things that we've been doing thus far since the last time we met. And as Patrick shared earlier, we have actually started with a visioning session to look towards strategic planning that we did with Kathy Dwyer Southern. And this visioning session, which was in collaboration with RHS, was very good in helping to set the foundation for where we're going to head with our strategic planning, which will focus on updating our mission and vision and looking at the future of the museum for the next 30 years. It was a process that all of the staff took participation in. And so I was really excited that it allowed them to sit in on the opportunity. You know, it's not only an opportunity for them to kind of voice their opinions, but then also a way for them to kind of add to their resume of experience and things that they're actively doing here at the museum. And so now I'll move on to staffing. In February, we welcomed a new volunteer coordinator, Emily Lefebvre, who is absolutely amazing. She came to us from the I'm sorry, my slides are going forward without me. I don't know what's going on, from Tudor Place, and actually has done a very good job of building out recruitment opportunities and looking at new opportunities at the museum, including a front desk information person and more help with our public programming with activities like our summer concert series and our chamber concerts. And so it's really been great to have Emily at the table. So I'll go on to the news that was probably the most sad news that we've received, is that our Samantha Ferris, in a good news, she was promoted to a new position at the College Park Aviation Museum. But the bad news is that she's no longer at Riversdale. And on her very last day, Councilman Dave Lingle actually came and gave her a citation recognizing her 15 plus years of service at Riversdale, which was really a great closeout to Samantha's time here at the museum. Another sad moment is that our Emily Lefebvre will be leaving. She just joined us 3 short months ago, but she has accepted a full-time position. And for those that don't know, Riversdale only has 2 full-time positions, and that's mine and the one that was held by Samantha Ferris. The rest of our staff are all part-time, and it's really one of the problematic issues in terms of staff retention at museums within PG Parks. And so Emily has accepted a position at the American University, and we're really sad to see her go, but we have benefited greatly from the short time that she was here. I spoke with the division chief and kind of let her know my concerns about the vacancies. And so Samantha Ferris's position will likely be posting in the next week to 2 weeks. And Emily Lefebvre, because it's only been 3 months, I do have permission to go back into the crop of individuals that we interviewed to see if we can offer someone a position. And if not, we will immediately repost this position upon Emily's last day. This summer, we will also have summer interns at Riversdale who will be looking at getting a full experience from front of the house operations, and also looking at script development for our tour at Riversdale. I know I've talked to you a number of times about creating an audio tour to help offset the guided tours that we have, because our division is expecting us to open on Saturdays to the public. And we just have to think about our staff capacity, our volunteer capacity. And we have visited a number of other museums who have implemented self-guided tours through audio. And so we're looking at that option. So our summer interns will look at that, and then also help out with things like our transcription project and things like that. So we're really excited about their work. And I should say that Kaya Plummer, who's at the top, she is a descendant of Adam Francis Plummer. So we're excited to see her come in. And then Laura Reed DeMarco is a student at UMD who's looking to get more museum experience. So we're super excited about both interns coming this summer. So now on to preservation. We have been undergoing a number of preservation repairs and fixes. Earlier in the year, late last year, our windows in the butler's pantry, as well as in the dependency and the east wing hyphen door, were all removed because they were horribly damaged and war torn, and then a lot of rotting wood and things like that. And so we worked with our historic preservation unit to hire a contract with the Eisenbrandt to replace those items. And as you can see, these are the much nicer windows that have been reinstalled, and we're really excited about that. These are in the butler's pantry, and the door that you see is the east wing hyphen door, which was starting to buckle and have draftiness coming into the house, and has really helped us to better regulate our HVAC. I think Jen Flood would agree that our HVAC has probably been more consistent than it has been in a very long time. We haven't really had to have a service from Hoddle in about 6 months. So we're really excited about that. And I'll knock on wood here at my table just so we don't bring any other bad juju on that. And the other thing that we've had done, we had 2 test pits that were dug, one in the front near the east wing hyphen door and one in the rear of the building. This is the early scoping out that they're doing to look at the water infiltration issues that we have at Riversdale that have caused some of the paint peeling and cracking in the building, as well as the interior paint buckling. So this is the beginning of that process. And so they've actually gone through and done that and actually replaced the sand and soil in those areas. And that work is slated to actually take place starting this summer, which looks like right now it is a 1-year process. But as you know, with most construction and preservation work, like a timetable is only as permanent as the work that can get done. So we're really excited to kind of start that process. Earlier in February, we had preservation guests, the Maryland Association of Historic District Commissions, which also included Tom Gross, who works on the planning side of MNC PPC. We were really excited to kind of have this group at our site and meeting with our audience. Patrick and Howard were also able to actually come out and participate in this meeting, and we discussed preservation and race. And like how that impacts communities. And I was really excited when they reached out to us to hold it at Riversdale, because I do think that as we think about preservation in Prince George's County, race is a huge factor in terms of preservation and what gets saved and what gets protected in the county. And things are actually going to be, a little bit different moving forward, I think, based on the conversations that this group has had with county executives across the state, but in particular in Prince George's County. So it's really kind of nice to have this conversation taking place at a place where we kind of value preservation and the work that we do. Our preservation next steps, as I shared before, this is a recent meeting, just I think last week, where the Historic Preservation Unit, as well as the project manager, Sylvan Miles, who's an architect with MNC PPC, have come over and done a walkthrough as a follow-up to the test pit conversation, and actually looking at like our sump pump and seeing where the moisture is flowing in to that, and identifying the other areas in the house where there is high levels of moisture that have greatly impacted the structure. So we're really excited to get this work off the ground. Safety and security. I'm excited to say that Park Police, I sent the request out to Park Police to ask that they ramp up security at Riversdale in the evenings. In the last couple of months, we've had quite a bit of evening activity on our property, and we found a lot of paraphernalia at our site that we just do not want there. We want to further protect our structure and our grounds for the public, and also think about our neighbors who are also greatly concerned about the individuals who are kind of lurking around Riversdale after hours. And so the Park Police, our neighbors have told us they've actually seen the presence in the evening. Even if they're not awake, it's on their Ring cameras. And so I'm really excited about that. And then just last week, we had our IT staff come in and do a feasibility walkthrough to see what our likelihood is of getting video cameras at the visitor center as well as the mansion, and then also taking into consideration our historic preservation easement. So we are in the early throes of that conversation. One of the items that they're looking at putting on is getting staff identification access to the buildings instead of actual keys. So that is probably going to be one of the earliest steps in this work, but we're really excited that we're actually looking at safety and security. And with that, I do want to share that we also had an ADA walkthrough with our special programs division, who just talked about not just the accessibility, but the safety of accessibility. And so they are actually going to send us a report that in our 30th year, we're taking part of our budget to put into accessibility fixes at Riversdale, including our sidewalk that enters into the visitor center. It has a lip, so it's not really wheelchair accessible. Although we have the wheelchair ramp, the sidewalk does prevent people from actually getting in. They're looking at the hyphen door, like, is there a way to install a ramp that doesn't compromise the easement and things like that. So we'll be working very closely with our Historic Preservation Unit on that, as well as MHT and the HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission. So we're really just excited to make our place more accessible and safe for our audience. So that's the update on that. In terms of grounds, our parking lot lighting was finally installed. I know I shared that with you for a number of months, and it's finally installed in our visitor center lot. And so in the coming fiscal year, I'm hoping to put in a request for our entrance lot so that we can get lighting on that side as well. Another grounds component that has been added is our compost bins. These were created by Brian Carroll from the Historic Preservation Unit, who drew them up for us. And this area ahead of us installing the compost bins, if you remember, we actually had a program called Echoes of the Enslaved, which is actually a program of the archaeology team at PG Parks. And they actually did do archaeology test pits in this area. So it was approved by MHT for us to move forward with creating the compost bins, which will greatly benefit our gardener, Laura, who's actually needed a space to do composting after the seasons coming to an end. So while we're on the garden, I figured I'd cover like what's in bloom. We're really excited. Of course, our tulips have been very popular this year. It was a very beautiful display. I told Laura, please send me a list of what is actually growing. And some of the things that are growing are allium, asparagus, chives, hyacinths, iris, garlic, lamb's ear, lettuce, peonies, scallions, sweet William, and tulips. And there's many other things to come as we get further along in the summer. And one of my favorites, I just love this picture. It was my first time seeing a fringed tulip, which I just thought was so beautiful. So I couldn't resist including that. In terms of our exhibition update, the exciting news on that is that we actually held a visioning session with Rob Ferloni, who is one of the foremost museum professionals in our state, who has come and kind of helped us look at actualizing our exhibition. And we also ended up applying for a Maryland Heritage Area Authority grant for a non-capital grant where we're going to look at design for our exhibition on the enslaved. And so our request was for $49,000 for that grant funding to complete the design of production ready art. And we're really excited and hopeful that we also hear good news in July, and we can move forward with this work because we are really closing up the text review portion of this. We had a recent meeting with our focus group, which we hadn't met with in a number of months, to give them the most updated text, which Lee Ryan has been a very regular part of that process as well. And we'll be meeting again this month in May to look at the finalizing of that before we move forward with the design phase. We have proposals from Healy Kohler Design as well as Howard and Revis. So based on the grant results, then we'll kind of move forward with looking at RFPs from both of those companies. Volunteers, as I shared, Emily Lefebvre has done an amazing job of getting more volunteers to come out and work with us. And one of the things that we are going to do is we initially had a volunteer training on the books with Dr. Cheryl LaRoche to do a discussion on slavery and changing tours and things like that moving forward. And so that has now been rescheduled for a virtual meeting on June the 5th. That information will be coming out in the coming weeks. Emily Lefebvre has already started to draft that. And so we're looking forward to that particular training. In terms of education, Spencer Worley has been extremely busy. We've seen a number of field trips come through Riversdale for both DAR chapters, school groups, garden clubs, where we're just really excited to kind of see this reinvigoration of people wanting to come out to our sites for field trips. And so Spencer did a couple of homeschool groups, which has seemed to be the influx of students that are coming to our sites. The county schools are still having some challenges, but they are coming and getting the buses and coming to Riversdale, but we're really excited. And we've seen school groups come from Washington, D.C. as well. So we're excited for that opportunity. On April 25th, Spencer did lead a homeschool day in conjunction with the College Park Aviation Museum. They did 1 week and we did another. And they actually just did this jointly together. And it was really a great turnout because there was a deal that was offered if you purchase both homeschool days, you got a discounted rate to come. And so our event was completely sold out, which we were very excited about. Spencer also worked with our archaeology team to hold a public wash day at Riversdale, where archaeologists taught participants how to handle and wash objects that were uncovered on site at Riversdale. Coming up for June, we will have our Hands-on History Week, which Spencer will be leading, and we have division support from our head of interpretation, Marvin Alonso, and his direct report, Epi Flores, who will be assisting with the Hands-on History Weeks coming up in June. We have 2 different age groups. The first group will meet the week of June 19th. They'll be ages 5 to 8, and the second week are age 9 to 12 years old. And so we're looking at the spice trade during Hands-on History Week. So Spencer has a lot of fun projects coming up, and he did actually test out a couple of those activities on our home group field trip. So we're really excited to see how that goes forward. During Black History Month, I just kind of want to highlight some of the programming that we've had to date. We actually had our Plumber's Kitchen, where our Kitchen Guild supported us for that effort, and they collaborated with our Director of Interpretation, Marvin Alonso Greer, to do 19th century cooking and hand out recipes. And we really had a great turnout for that event. I think there was something like 60 or so people that came through that day. So we were very excited about that. And we also had an exhibition that Jen Flood and I kind of worked on together, picturing Adam Francis Plummer, which really was addressing the lack of presence of enslaved people during the 19th century. And we had an opportunity to kind of look at how fortunate, we are to kind of have images of Adam and his wife, Emily, as well as some of his children throughout the years, and then the creation of and using our newly commissioned mosaic portrait that was created by Chanel Compton for that work, and kind of showing some of the artistic symbolism that she used, including soil from Riversdale, which was collected when we had the archaeology work during Echoes, and she put into a jar with the names of his children, waist beads from Ghana, symbolizing the transatlantic slave trade that would have impacted all of the enslaved communities that were here in Maryland. And so we were really excited about that. And it gave us a new way to talk about Adam and his family. We also were fortunate that we received coverage from PG Tourism and their tourism ambassador, Micheline Bowman, who I don't know if you follow her, but she's an amazing influencer that they are working with. And she came in and highlighted Riversdale. We were one of only 2 sites that were covered in PG Park. So we were really excited that she was interested in the work that we did. And Micheline liked us so much that she actually came back out for Plumber's Kitchen. So we were very excited. So this gave us a lot of her actually coming there just before that event, I think boosted the amount of people that actually came out. So I was really excited about that. So now moving on to outreach, we've done so much as a division, as a site. Our team has just actually been going on quite a bit. Our division actually went out to support one of our colleagues who was speaking for the Swiss Embassy, and it helped us to actually make new relationships. And so you can see in the big blue picture is myself and Kevin with civil rights icon Jane Mulholland, who now knows about Riversdale and is promising me that she'll come. I was really excited to meet her. And we also met Brian Stevenson, who is the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative and also the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama, where I recently had the opportunity to actually visit when I went down to speak to NCPH in Atlanta. So it was really exciting. So I'll go and I'll just say the first bit of outreach that we did is we did the 1856 Project Symposium, which RHS actually came out and supported us in. It included myself on a panel with our 2 interns from last summer, Marcus Suero and Lauren Cologne. So we had an opportunity to be on a program that featured Mary Elliott from the Smithsonian and some of the top scholars like Martha Jones, who's a good friend of mine, but just amazing, amazing people, and looking at the legacy of slavery at UMD in the state of Maryland, and most specifically in Prince George's County. We were happy and delighted to be invited to participate in that. and talk about the work of the transcription and digitization that we're trying to do with our collections here at Riversdale. And just last month, I actually participated in the National Council for Public Historians. I was invited to participate on the keynote panel. It gave me an opportunity to talk about the transformations happening at Riversdale, which a lot of people are excited about, and it put us on such a national platform. It was my first time participating in this conference, and I was really happy to kind of share the work that we're doing, both RHS and Riversdale collectively. Our Descendants Network, we have had a couple of meetings, which we invited in our most recent meeting, Gwen Bankins, who is a descendant at Historic Sauterley, to discuss with our group ways that they can further engage at Riversdale and take actionable steps to be a part of our community, and just gave several great ideas from Sauterley and the ways in which their descendant community interacts with the museum. We also, myself and Kaya Plummer, were invited by the National Trust to participate in their Descendant Social Lab, which took place at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And it included descendants from all over the country who are working with museums like ours to better integrate and tell the full picture of our sites, and giving descendants more of a voice at the table to kind of tell us like what people want to hear, like what would make this, you know, something that could work and keep them engaged and not just show up sometimes, but actively stay a part of this. And then also a second meeting was held where Arlington National Cemetery, Arlington House, Robert E. Lee's home, was actually a descendant program just about 2 weeks ago, where I was fortunate to meet members of the Norris family, which is one of the families we've been trying to identify with here at Riversdale. As you know, for many years we've discussed Adam Francis Plummer, but we are actively looking for those other families who were enslaved at Riversdale. And we believe that this Norris family is directly connected to us because we know that George Washington Parke Custis, descendant from Eleanor Calvert, sister of George Calvert. And one of the things we discussed at that meeting is the fact that of all the enslaved people at Arlington, they actually do know that the Norrises did not come from George Washington's Mount Vernon. And I believe they actually came through a Calvert line. So we're exploring that more, and we're really excited to pick up this descendant work. We've had several meetings at our site. We've done a couple of in-kind meetings for Riverdale Park Arts, who actually leads our summer, our chamber concerts at Riversdale. And we actually will have one coming up in May that we're very excited about. But we also had a lecture series that the Paint Branch Garden Club did for us. Beth Alvarez actually brought her group to meet with us and had a lecturer come in, and that was really exciting. And we did lunch, and I believe Beth celebrated a birthday that day. So it's really a nice event. So now, this month, the Natural and Historical Resources Division, which Riversdale falls under, will actually be celebrating Preservation Month, and we will be open every Sunday this month, free of charge, for self-guided tours for the public to actually come in, and we'll be giving out tote bags that actually have Riversdale on them. I didn't know that Riversdale was actually on the tote bag until I looked the other day, and giving those away. Each of the people that come in will receive a bag, and it actually has a $5 Chick-fil-A gift card, which I know that won't cover the complete cost of a meal, but it should actually help offset the cost. And we're excited to kind of give away some preservation tips and things like that, and promote what we're doing at Riversdale. The Sunday, this coming Sunday, the first Sunday that we're open for Preservation Month, the Sankofa Mobile Museum will actually be coming to do a soft launch through their VR experience, where children will be able to kind of see that before the museum itself goes out on the road. So they'll be at our site on Sunday from 1 to 3 o'clock. If you get a chance, come and check that out. And that Sunday, I should say, there is a group that uses our grounds, and they are students who do low-tech activities whose parents are trying to get them out of the house, from doing like video games. And so they will be there this coming Sunday, and we're excited to kind of merge them up with Sankofa, but then also have an opportunity for them to actually come into the house and see the space, because most days when they come, it's on a Saturday when we are currently closed to the public. Our Kitchen Guild has been very, very, very busy supporting us. They come about 2 Sundays in a month. And here you see Kathy this past Sunday. We had the Kitchen Guild there, and they will be there during Preservation Month on the 14th of May. So we're excited to have them come out for the Mother's Day session that they're going to do. We will also have on Sunday, May 14th, the Riversdale Chamber Music Series featuring Rob DeLutis and the Maryland Clarinet Quartet. So that will take place from 2 to 3 with a small reception following. So we're excited to kind of have this activity, you know, being so robust at Riversdale, and that people will want to engage with us more now that Preservation Month will be an activity that our division is going to get behind on a yearly basis. And I do want to announce that Cheryl LaRoche, who's going to lead our volunteer training on June the 5th, we actually nominated her for the Maryland Historical Trust's highest preservation award. And we are proud to announce that she actually received the award and will be recognized at Riversdale on May 18th. And this is like an invitation only program that we're doing with the Maryland Historical Trust, who will hold their board meeting at our site that morning. And, you know, it'll give us an opportunity to build that relationship further. They do hold our historic preservation easement, and for them to come out to our site is really important for us. So we're really excited about this, and that Dr. LaRoche received this high honor of which she's most deserving. And now on to the 30th anniversary year. Our staff has been hard at work trying to pull this schedule together, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. From my part, the things that I've been working on is working with the Public Affairs and Community Engagement Division and PG Parks to make sure that we have a logo for the 30th anniversary, which I'm supposed to be receiving in the coming week. And then they're also working to build out a campaign for us to promote our year-long events. As Patrick shared earlier, our actual day that we opened as a museum was June the 12th. And now we're going to look at activities starting with a Happy Birthday Riversdale day of being open for free tours on June the 11th. And we're planning on giving out cupcakes that day, probably in the Dependency, and just celebrating and trying to make it a festive day. But we didn't want to overdo it because we're planning to have a bigger celebration in collaboration with an organization called Greater Riversdale Thrives, that's made up of local businesses as well as religious organizations who want to give back to the community. And if you recall, RHS and Riversdale collectively did a map assessment where we were looking at being a better community resource and you know, just further engagement with our community. So we saw that as a great opportunity, and we're looking at having that event in September. Some of the other items that have come up as potential programming is Tulip Mania in spring of 2024. We have a call out to the Belgian Embassy to bring back the, oh goodness, the name of the event. I can't even remember, I'm sorry, but we will be working, the Belgian Fest, yes. So Belgian Fest, we're planning to try to bring that back in 2024 as well. And so we're just waiting to hear back from the Belgian Embassy on whether they approve that. An elementary school art competition in winter of 2023, so that we can have an actual small student exhibition in a temporary gallery for 2024. And we're looking at the Riversdale 30 Years of Riversdale exhibition that Jen Flood and I will be working on as well. And then a Descendant Community Group event in November of 2023, and looking at potentially either using that date or one in 2024 to hold the Riversdale reunion. We want to have a reunion of both Calvert and Plummer family members and any other person that we may identify between now and then as having a descendancy from Riversdale at that event. And then in June of 2024, we want to do a grand reopening, because in this year, what my hope is after Kathy Southern's great visioning session is that we can move forward with soliciting a facilitator to lead us in our strategic planning efforts. And I believe that might be it. Well, there's the Hallmark events that will also be taking place during the year, the 30th anniversary year. So Summer at Riversdale, you know, we do our summer concert series. We have 4 dates lined up for that. And then we will also have our Shakespeare in a Park at Riversdale as well. So all of that information is up on our calendar on the website. And you can actually look at those dates and plug them in and see when you want to come out for that. And in closing, the team and I, we actually attended the PG Parks town hall, which was a town hall of all the divisions and staff people from across the PG Park system. And they shared with us what their FY24 agenda is. And I just wanted to share it here so that everyone will know, because then what we're going to do in our 30th anniversary year is try to figure out how we can incorporate these things as a part of our work at Riversdale. One is ADA compliance, the other is park revitalization, partnerships, staff retention, community engagement, and customer care. And now I will leave it open for questions.
Yes, I have a question. What's the status of rentals? That was one reason why the house wasn't open on Saturdays, because usually it was used for rentals, but is it still going to be available for rental, or is that?
So yes, thanks, Anne. Thanks for asking that. So what we're looking at is, due to our staff capacity being so low right now, we are holding off on big rentals such as weddings, baby showers, and things like that, and moving more towards rentals of meeting space, which we have received several requests for, and it's more attainable to do for us during the week. And I do, you know, we have had several staff members, not just at Riversdale, but the other historic sites, express concern about, you know, how will that impact rentals on Saturdays and things like that. So I think it's something our division is going to test out and see how it works. And then we'll kind of just be as transparent as we can be with our public.
Maya, this is Howard. If I can ask, I don't think I was clear on Micheline Bowman and just what she did or is doing that we can tap into.
So Micheline Bowman is a ambassador for PG Tourism, the Tourism Bureau, and she actually goes around to historic sites and visits, and she'll like take pictures, or sometimes she may do like a walkthrough tour, which is what she did with us at Riversdale, to kind of get people and convince them to actually come out to the site. And so that's what she does.
Does she put those pictures and that tour, does she put that up on a website, or?
Yeah, well, she uses social media.
She
uses, she does use a video. She uses Facebook. She uses Instagram. So she is out on social media. And I think the Visitors Bureau, their website is where it would be found. And I'll find those links and send those to you.
Yeah, I was going to say, if she puts something up, then we'll share it through the RHS social media as well.
Okay, I'll definitely share that with you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Well, thank you, Maya, very much for your presentation. A lot going on at Riverdale currently, and a lot looking forward to in the future for the celebration of the 30th anniversary. And, you know, it is kind of a double-edged sword in the sense of Samantha's departure. There's that she is promoted and not too far down the road. A lot of institutional knowledge there that we can certainly tap into because, as they say, we know where she lives or where she works.
Yes.
So we can certainly reflect on the knowledge and information that she has gathered over the 15 years that she's been a part of Riversdale.
For sure. And Samantha, she does participate in our NHRD managers meetings now. So I actually just saw her just this past week. So she'll be there, and I know that I can tap her at any moment.
Great. That's great. And any other questions for Maya? All right. If not, we will move on a little bit to Kitchen Guild. And again, that's one of the hats that Michelle wears, that she's unfortunately, as I said, wearing one of her other volunteer hats. So I'll just share with you her update that she gave to me. They've had a very successful open house on March the 12th. And at that time, they had interest from 2 individuals in volunteering with the Kitchen Guild. Sandra Romero observed on April 30th and seems to be interested in coming back to volunteer. And Jasmine Conwell is the second person, but she's not been able to come back to a Kitchen Guild Kitchen Guild demonstration to observe yet, but Michelle is trying to arrange that. They also have future dates of open hearth cooking will be May 14th. That's Mother's Day. A lot going on at the house that day. June 4th, June 11th, and June 18th, where they will feature open hearth cooking demonstrations and recipes from that particular segment for spring and summer, using things coming in from the garden also. So we look forward to that. I guess next up, Beth, if you want to give us an update of what's going on at Calvert Memorial Park, which a lot of things are happening.
I didn't unmute myself. I actually have a written report that I've submitted to Anne but I think I'll just hit the high points rather than reading it. I do want to report that right now the total number of volunteer hours devoted to the park are 1,995.5. So we're getting up there with the number of hours that we've devoted to the park. Since the last time I actually reported, there have been two major activities at the park. On February 3rd, actually 5 rather sizable trees were installed through the connection with global health and education projects. They do public health things, and planting trees is one of the public health initiatives they have going on in Prince George's County. So there were a swamp white oak, 2 American lindens, and 2 pawpaws were planted in the park in places that we had agreed upon, the Historical Society and Paintbrush Garden Club ahead of time. Actually, I am surprised at how much just having those trees seems to demarcate particularly on the edge of East-West Highway, the park, because we have had incursions of trucks and equipment, et cetera, into the park. So cross fingers, nothing has happened in a year there, so that's a good thing. On April 22nd, we actually had a very, very successful Earth Day project. We had connections with Alpha Phi Omega Service Fraternity last year and had a small amount of help from a couple members of the fraternity with a project in the park last year. But having kept communications with the vice presidents for service, they contacted me and said, could we do a larger thing? So I said, what about Earth Day? Because we did have an Earth Day project last year. So we did. We actually had 23 volunteers, men and women, because it's a co-ed fraternity, even though it's fraternity. And we accomplished a great deal in 2 hours. It's amazing when you have young people and that number of people, how much you can accomplish. So we actually had ordered 250 plugs of native plants. Those were all installed. Maryland National Park and Planning also gave us some additional plants that we installed, as well as one of our volunteers. Let's see what else we did. We had a huge number of branches, large branches and things that we started putting in an area where we're establishing compost. And the students helped one of our spouses, one of the garden club spouses, to cut all those up. We also raked up leaves. What am I missing? I think that's pretty much it. Oh no, one major thing that we did is we had an additional 6 cubic yards of mulch, which we spread in areas that we did not get to in the spring or in the fall when we had our Good Neighbor Day project. So there were actually 9 supervisors as well as the 23 students. So it was a very, very successful project. And also what happened is we had rain afterwards, because we were sort of in almost a drought condition. So that rain for our little newly installed plugs was fantastic. So we're really happy about all of that. April also marked the fact that we have now a new mowing contractor for the park. So grass mowing is going on weekly for 3 months, and then we'll go to every other week after that through the month of November. And finally, we did revise, look at, and sign our memorandum of understanding with the Historical Society, with the Garden Club and the Historical Society on our ongoing connection. So that's going on through the next year, or I guess it covers 2023. So we look forward to that. Of course, I am happy to have anybody who wishes to come out to volunteer. I send out a weekly thing to a large email list I have, and we're continuing to aim to meet on Tuesday mornings, and as going forward. So we'll see how that goes. And I guess the only other thing, I know that it was put on the agenda, but I believe the only two volunteers we have are Ann Turcos and myself for Trolley Trail Day, but we will be there offering tours of the park to anybody who wishes to have it and meet and greet. So we'll be there from 11 to 4 on July 10th. So I think that's all I have. So if anybody's got any questions for me, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Beth. I do want to say, I've been up at the park frequently in the last few weeks, and it just looks great. I mean, it is such a transition over the years that you and the almost 2,000 hours of volunteer work have put into it. And just it's looking magnificent. And I think, the aspect, if we are lucky enough to receive the grant, the additions of the landscaping and the fencing and signage and the arch representing the church will just really be the cherry on the sundae here. But so everybody keep their fingers crossed of that happening for us.
I guess I should say that since Paul did his project and we now have two benches in the park, I have seen almost every time I'm ever there, there is someone who comes in and sits in the park and just enjoys it, whether it's somebody with their dog or somebody just relaxing. In fact, on Earth Day, it was very amusing. A little family, a mother, father, and a toddler came in and had a little picnic while we were finishing up our work, which I found very amusing. So anyway.
Great. And just to clarify, Trolley Day is Saturday, June 10th, and open house at the museum for the 30th anniversary is June 11th. So full weekend of Riversdale activities for us all. So next up, Howard, you want to bring us up to date on the next issue of the newsletter?
Sure. We are in final design of the new newsletter. Many of the things that you all have just heard about will be covered in that, including the Earth Day activities, the grant. There will be an article that, unfortunately, just because time got away from us, has to go back all the way to last fall. But it was a commemoration of the participation in the War of 1812 of Charlotte Norris Calvert's father. Patrick and Joanne and Davis attended that, and we will give some coverage of that. Maya and Patrick both have several remarks in their columns. We have coverage of the garden. We have coverage of the Kitchen Guild. So that should be out probably in the next 2 weeks, but certainly by the end of the month. Always looking for new articles, new ideas. I have to say that this issue, I'm particularly pleased because we have so many different contributors than we've had before. Again, Joanne and Davis gave us great coverage of the Norris grave marking. Carolyn Wayner, who's a Calvert family descendant and involved in the Descendant Network, wrote up a piece on that. Obviously, our input from our gardener and from our Kitchen Guild. So it really helps me and it helps the society as well. So I appreciate all of that. So look for that in the next couple of weeks. And then, Patrick, if you want me to, I'll just move on in.
Yes, if you would, under social media.
One of the things that we will also cover in the newsletter is the hiring of Kelly Koenig as our new social media manager. Brenna Spray had done a lot of that when she was engaged through Park and Planning, and we had also used her for our social media work. Kelly comes to us from Frederick, Maryland. She's got a long, extensive background, and I had hoped she could be here today to give us update on the metrics and the extent of how well we are extending our reach through social media. However, she thinks she's come down with the flu. So we will all send her good wishes. And what I'll do is ask her to give us the metrics and the measures of our reach and distribute that around either with the minutes of this meeting or at some other time.
All righty, thank you very much. Any questions about social media or newsletters for Howard? If not, then let's go to Jen Flood. Will give us a little update on our collections and our collection management policy that we've been working on. Jen?
Yeah, it's going to be a short report this time because there's only been a few projects that I've been working on, but they've taken up the majority of my time. What has been mentioned before, the transcription and digitization project is a constant, working on that. But then to get ready for the grant digitization, Ann Turcos and I have been working on that, and that's taken up a good chunk of time, getting everything ready and prepared and the metadata sorted out. So we're really excited about that. As we've had these documents for years now, and to have this finally getting ramped up and everything formally digitized is really exciting, so that we can focus on transcribing them. And our volunteer base has been wonderful with that, helping us do that, so that we can really focus on the research and working with the information that is in those documents, which has been just priceless in expanding our interpretation. So we're really excited about that. So a lot of time has been focused on that. Secondary to that is I am doing the inventory of the collection, which takes a large chunk of time, because it's important to inventory the collection so we know where everything is, and assess the condition of everything, make sure everything's stable moving forward. And then thirdly is the collections management policy that Patrick mentioned. Since Riversdale has been a museum since 1998, both RHS and Park and Planning have consistently expanded their collection. And so one of the ways we protect and preserve the collections is to have a collections management policy. Now, Park and Planning and RHS have separately owned collections. The objects can't be jointly owned. So the collections management policy that for RHS is what I'm speaking about right now. Recently, we have drafted and updated the collections management policy for RHS. So for those who don't know, a collections management policy basically governs what a museum does to care for the collection and to make the items available to the public. So having policies and the procedures in place is crucial to maintaining a properly functioning collection. So by applying the principles in the collections management policy, we're ensuring that they're properly cared for, reported, and thereby available and accessible to the public, both today and then for future generations. Like I said, this is separate from the Park and Planning collection. There's a separate collections management policy through Park and Planning. For RHS, we have 110 accessions that cover over 900 objects that RHS owns and is responsible for. So this policy is, we're making sure these accessions and acquisitions are properly documented. It covers collections care, access and use of the collection, risk management, the ethics, and it's all kind of under the umbrella of, like, you know, the mission statement of how we take care of everything. So we have gone through a number of revisions of the draft or the policy, and that is going in front of the executive committee coming up and is slated to be accepted. So that's wonderful to have that, going to have that checked off. And then once that is accepted, then we're also going to begin revising and updating all the forms that are related to collections care, accession, deaccession, condition reporting, loan documentation, things like that. So that's what's been going on with collections.
Jen, thank you very much. As you say, you say it's a very short report. It's not, certainly, but the amount of energy and time that you and Ann have been putting into preparing for the digitization of the documents is certainly helpful. And then coupled with the collections management policy. And I don't know if you have a moment that you want to expand at all with regards to Park and Planning's collection management. I know you've been an instrumental member of their committee as they are also updating their collections management policy. And you, as I understand from conversations, certainly have been driving a lot of that conversation for the county, or Park and Planning rather, to utilize our forms, or so that the forms are work well with one another, almost the same in layout and design and form. So it works very easily. Do you want to comment on that at all, if you would like?
Yeah, prior to COVID and the shutdown, there was an NHRD roundtable where people from each site, we met to discuss collections care and moving forward. So that's in about 2000, it began in 2016, I'd say, somewhere around there. So for a while, we were all meeting and working on policies for Park and Planning, and we got a really good start on drafting forms and updating forms. And then COVID came, things kind of ground to a halt there. But, and then Omar's leaving, that was put on hold until his replacement came on, and now Kevin Cabrera has stepped into his position and things are moving forward again. The forms have been accepted for Park and Planning. And so now that's why for RHS, the collections management policy is getting updated, because we're trying to work together. So the forms can complement each other. They're not identical, obviously, but they are very complementary and moving forward now, because there are both Park and Planning collections and RHS collections at Riversdale. We need them to kind of coexist and work together well. So it's nice that everything's getting updated for both Park and Planning and RHS moving forward. So we're making some good steps and really getting there to
That's wonderful.
jump back into things.
I know these are really administrative policies, but they certainly are very important to have a placeholder and guidance in moving forward. So I appreciate your work on that. And as you said, executive committee will see the final draft at our next executive committee and move forward with approval of those. So
Yes.
any
And
other
again,
comments?
more
Jen?
kudos, one last kudos to Ann Turcos too, for helping me just hours each week, helping me get the metadata ready for digitization. So thank you, Ann.
They always say the devil is in the details, and they've got a lot of details to deal with this. And we do appreciate your time.
Well, you're very welcome, Jen. It's been fun to get back to doing metadata. Thinking back to our gang of 6 when we worked on the original Calvert family documents all those years ago.
So that comes to the end of our agenda, except for any other business that anybody would like to bring forward. Have any questions or comments or thoughts that they'd like to share? Well, I guess we're all worn out from getting up early for the coronation, and I'm sure everybody's got their mint juleps lined up for this afternoon for the Kentucky Derby. We're kind of like that middle of the sandwich there, I guess. But anyway, I appreciate everyone's time today and taking and sharing it with us. A lot of updates from Maya, which we appreciate. Oh, Ann, you have a question?
Yeah, I had another question. When I was reading over the minutes from the December meeting, there was mention that the RHS was going to have a tea to celebrate the 30th anniversary. Is that still on the agenda, or has that been dropped?
No, we have had to kind of rework with that because of staffing changes at the mansion. And we're moving it a little forward. We will have some type of celebration, but we'll move it down probably in the fall of this year.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Oh, hello, gotta leave.
Okay, anything else? If not, I will call for adjournment of the meeting. And again, thank you everybody for your time today. Always appreciate it. Good day.